Hey guys, today is another beautiful day in 10 Million Journey, and I am talking to AJ Cassata, the founder of Revenue Boost, which is a coaching consulting company that helps B2B companies master their acquisition and sell more high ticket services, which is something we all want to do. AJ is an expert in getting dream clients and selling them the offers that are high ticket, but also that solve their problems. I'm very excited about this conversation as I myself been focusing on agency this year, and I want to pick AJ's brain on some of my stuff, and I also want you guys to have some opportunity to learn how to get your clients, how to sell, how to convert, all those kind of things. AJ, welcome.
Thanks so much for having me, man. Really excited for today's chat.
Same. I've been watching bunch of your interviews on YouTube and everywhere, and yeah, you bring so much value. So I'll try not to repeat ourselves, but I want to clarify some of the things that you were talking about. And I want to start with your journey. I know that you dropped out of school to pursue sales opportunity at like 18 or 19. If that's true, what was the opportunity that made you do that big step?
Yeah, definitely. So I was, I first of all, I didn't really know I wanted to get into sales or business. I was kind of like a lot of people in college, a little bit lost, right? You know, they just dump you into college after high school and like, oh, go figure it out, right?
Yeah.
So I was 18 years old in college in New York where I grew up, and someone came into my classroom, like a recruiter, and they were like, "Oh, you can make a bunch of money this summer doing this job." They didn't really say what it was, but I was like, "All right, well, sounds better than what I was doing at the time, which was delivering pizzas." So I just
Okay.
explored it, always open opportunities, and ended up being a sales and marketing job for a construction company, which I thought was pretty cool. They didn't end up telling me this until I started, but I had to go door to door doing sales and knock on like thousands of doors. But it
Wow.
was great. It was a great way to kind of grind and get my start in sales, and that was cool because I really learned like to get over the fear of rejection, right? Like, we have it so easy as online marketers. I always think about this. We get to sit behind a
Yeah.
computer, but when I got started, it was about 9 years ago. I had to, yeah. There's something you just learn about going and meet people in person and having to sell, and you have like 20 seconds to approach them and make your pitch, and doors will get slammed in your face. But it definitely taught me a lot. So don't do that anymore. But that was how I got my start, and I ended up being one of the top salespeople in the states. So I realized like, okay, maybe sales is for me. Maybe I should pursue this more. And then I got offered like a full time position, so I decided to drop out of school and just do it full time and just build some real life skills. I always figured I
Wow.
could go back to school, but I wasn't too worried about it.
Yeah, I mean, now you don't have to.
Yeah.
With all the knowledge that you learn just doing stuff, you probably don't have to go to school anymore. Um,
Mhm.
I'm very interested in some details. One of the things, as you said, you became one of the best performers in US. What do you think differentiates you from anybody else? What did you do they didn't do, and what are some of the things that made you stand up?
Yeah, so when I got started in that sales job, I think I think more than anything, it's not maybe the sexiest answer, but I just put in more work, right? Like I was just putting in more time than than a lot of the other salespeople. And it's not so much about putting in the most hours, but like it was a new thing to me, right? Like I was 18 years old, I was just getting into sales, so it's just repetition. I find that just gets you better at anything, right? Like
Yep.
no matter all the tricks, all the tactics, all the knowledge aside, like if you just do something enough, you just keep getting better at it, and you find those little tweaks. So I think there's
100%.
definitely an element of just me being driven and just be more competitive and just wanting it more than a lot of my other peers.
Yep.
But other than that, I think I was also maybe a little bit more learning to go off of like the script that they taught me and just try my own methods and just really feeling like what feels natural. Like I,
Yep.
I didn't know anything about sales, right? But I knew like I was pretty good with people and pretty social, so I just tried to play off of that. And I remember just trying to like rework the script they gave me and just figure out like what would be more natural to people, what would I connect more with, right? And just
Yeah.
trying a lot of different approaches. Now it's like I learned later it's called A/B testing, right? But I was trying
Yeah.
lots of different scripts when I was going door to door back then and just seeing what worked better and found things that worked a little bit better than what the company had given me.
Beautiful. Yeah, it's so bad that they don't teach you sales in school. Because when you learn sales, you can sell anything, and then all those scripts and all those approaches should be taught in school, but people don't. And I feel
Yeah.
so sad because I could have learned that, and I never learned that, and I'm struggling a lot. But yeah, I guess you made the best choice. You just went there in a field and did and get the most out of it, which is amazing.
Mm.
The question I have now, you're working with lots of agencies. We're going to talk about how Revenue Boost was born, but you see lots of agencies approaching you to help them with clients. Where's some of the top mistakes you see they make? Like some of the generic one you see, like, okay, everybody's doing that. I don't understand why, but this is like a common thing that everybody is just doing wrong.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I would say, yeah, by now I've worked at agencies in like almost every niche, like maybe 50 different niches, and I've really kind of gotten to see the common patterns between success and failure. And most of our clients are like either maybe a solo consultant or they're a six-figure agency, and we have some clients that are seven-figure agencies. So it's mostly kind of in that range, like still a small business. But the two biggest mistakes I'd see is one, they're not very focused in their business. They're not clear on what they're doing. They kind of just start this business doing something and then start to take whatever work comes their way, whatever clients want to give them money, and then they're just like a generic, shop
Yeah,
that serves everybody, right? And then there's nothing that makes you stand out. I think one of the biggest problems with agencies is there's so many of them, right? Like you probably know tons of people that have agencies, so
yes,
it's a little bit of a commodity. So you need to really be niche to stand out, right? Like ideally one specific offer to one specific target market that solves one specific problem. That just positions you as much more as a specialist, and it also makes it easier to get better, right? Because like it takes time to get better than anything. Like we talked about before, there's that repetition and doing it over and over again. And if you're doing
yeah,
like 10 different things, you're only moving like 10% in each direction and like very slowly improving the skill or getting better at that, whatever that niche or that offer is, right? So if you
yeah,
just do one thing, you just like compound so much faster and just get way better at it sooner. And other things happen too, right? Like there's all these compound effects of just doing one thing consistently. Like you develop the network, you develop more testimonials and case studies, more client results. So everything kind of works better. So you can kind of like move faster in one direction. Um,
yeah.
but yeah, if you don't do that, you definitely don't stand out. So that would be the first mistake.
I see. And yeah, people, when I'm looking for an agency, and if somebody says, okay, I'm like a web development agency, and then I also am dating agency, and I'm also like whatever, I'm like, are you sure? Are you just trying to make money and you see nothing works and you're trying to just add some stuff, or you really understand what you're doing? So I'm completely with you. When I would be searching for agency, I would not go for somebody who offers too many things. Just if
Yeah,
you do lead gen, you're doing lead gen. Stop doing lead gen on websites. Like, why do you need websites? If you're doing lead gen so well, it shows you don't have to do websites because your lead gen business is so good. But if it's not, you're showing that you're trying to diversify. And to me, that's like you're not making money out of it, and then that's why you're struggling. So I think
yeah.
that's a good signal. Some more of those, if you have some other ones.
Yeah, definitely. So another mistake, and it kind of relates to focus and doing too many things, is like just doing a million different marketing methods, right? So
Yeah,
I find a lot of times, especially people in the beginning stages, and I was guilty of this too. I think, well, actually, just to back up, I think in the beginning it is okay to experiment a little bit more temporarily if you're trying to find like what your niche is and what that one thing is for you, right? So I think that is healthy in the beginning, but then eventually there has to be a point where you're like, okay, I'm going to commit to just this. Um, but the
yeah,
same thing applies to marketing. So a lot of times I see people, they're like doing social media, they're maybe running a little bit of ads here and there, they're going to events, they're doing all these different things, and it's like, again, if you don't really just do one thing consistently or do it well, then it's just going to
yeah,
be so hard to make progress, right? So I think it just goes back to the power of focus. For most agencies, I recommend really having outbound as a core channel, which we can talk about today. But whatever it works
yeah,
for you. If you like ads, and do ads. If you like social media, if you're the kind of person that loves going to events or conferences or trade shows and meeting people, and just make sure that you can ideally just have one thing. Because I realize like you don't really need to have like five different marketing channels to grow a big business. Like just one thing can grow you pretty well. I mean that construction company that I worked for when I was younger, they were a $40 million company, and like 90% of the business came from just door to door. So it was mainly like one channel that brought in like eight figures, right? So it
yeah.
goes to show you that you don't really need to be doing that much stuff to actually grow. You just got to do one thing and just do it pretty well, and you can always add more later.
Beautiful. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's a very, very important message. So many times you see Facebook pages that are like not updated for years, or
Mm.
like Instagram. It just makes you look worse. It like you're
Yeah, yeah,
trying to do something, but it just makes you look worse because you're not doing it properly and you're not spending enough time, which
yeah.
I'm doing as well. To be honest, I have some Facebook pages I haven't updated.
Oh, I've done the
But
same thing too, man. It's the curse of the entrepreneur, right? We all love shiny ideas, shiny balls, and like
yes,
we all get excited by the newest thing, or we open up our Facebook feed and see our friend doing something, and we're like, I'm gonna try that, right?
yeah,
So it's
100%. I
happening.
actually listened to a bunch of your interviews, and I'm already like decided to do a couple other things I'm doing just by listening, just by preparing for this call. But we'll see where that goes. Amazing. So one thing that you said in one of the interviews that I think we should touch on, because I mean a lot of people will be excited about. You said that your marketing budget for your revenue, and correct me if I'm wrong, for your current agency is $0.
Yeah, we're not running any paid ads right now. We've been running this business for a year and a half or so, and haven't really haven't cracked into ads.
So what do you do? I mean, I assume I know, but for other people who are listening, how is that possible?
Yeah, so we started our business just with outbound lead gen, and then added organic marketing, so content marketing, and we have a community. Our Facebook community is a big center of our marketing. But yeah, I've really been on a mission to see like how far we can grow the business without having to spend a bunch of money on ads. We are going to launch ads this year because it is, I think, part of the natural progression. But
Yeah,
I think a lot of people, they think they need to go spend a bunch of money on ads from the beginning or have a big budget to start a business, and I kind of wanted to like prove that wrong. So
yeah,
we do outbound, which is basically just cold outreach, direct messaging on LinkedIn and cold email. And then on the organic side, we post a lot of content, or I post a lot of content on Facebook and LinkedIn. And we have a community called B2B Sales and Marketing Secrets where we just give lots of free value. And that's a great way to draw people in and help them get to see what
beautiful.
we're all about.
We'll put a link to that in a show notes so everybody can join. I'll join as well if it's an open community. I would
Yeah, yeah.
love to join as well. Beautiful. Actually, I would go as far as to say, in my experience, and I'm not as proficient as you, but I'm actually curious what you're gonna say, because I was talking to somebody recently and they say, well, for a first client, I need like a good website, need this and that, and I don't think you even need a website. I actually was signing up clients without a domain name.
Mm.
I was signing up five-figure clients without a domain name. So at one point, somebody told me, he's like, your domain name is weird. Why are you using Gmail? That looks unprofessional. And I'm like, well, I did it for 5 years, and you're the first one who noticed. I
Yeah.
guess I'll buy a domain name. What are your thoughts on that?
Man, I'm totally with you. I think in the beginning of starting a business, you just really need to focus on two things, right? Sales and fulfillment. Anything that's not that is really, to a point, just a distraction. So, yeah, same as you. Well, I did have a domain name, so at least I was maybe one step ahead of the game, but I don't think I
Yeah,
ever even used it, right? But
yeah,
I didn't have a website. I mean, we actually only launched our website like at the end of last year, so it was like only a year until we actually launched our site. At some point along the way, I put up like a crappy landing page, so I had something, but like I never even really brought people to it. So I think
yeah,
it's just you just need a way for people to trust you. And nowadays, you can just have a conversation on social media, move that to a call, right? And like
yeah,
someone meets you, that's their opportunity to trust you. So I totally agree. I think it's not really necessary, right? Especially it could be one of those many things in the beginning that just distracts you from actually prospecting, sales, and delivering for
yeah.
clients, which is the main point of the business, right?
Beautiful. I'm happy that we're on the same page. Hopefully, people are listening who are doing a bunch of stuff, bunch of random stuff instead of just making money. Because
Yeah,
yeah, if we want to get busy, we'll get ourselves busy. We're like, I'm not gonna launch it before I have 15,000 followers on my social media, two websites, and then you
yeah,
launch it and nobody needs it, and you're like, damn it, spent all this time creating offers that I haven't showed to nobody, and nobody needs them. That's, I think, the most common thing that I actually did before as well. So these days, I just have a templated website that I launch, and I just go and I try to find somebody needs it. No, somebody needs it. No, somebody needs it. Yes, okay, cool. And then this is
yeah.
actually how I create offers as well. Yeah.
By just getting a bare minimum website up, landing page.
Yeah. And then just talking to people like on a call. Okay, what else do you need? Okay, what are your problems? And then from there, I would like we create a podcasting growth agency, which I'm not doing anymore. But it was like an experiment. I was like, without a website, without anything, can we? Because I was on a downfall. I need some money. I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna grow other people's podcast.
Mm.
And yeah, we signed a client in 13 days. We just send everybody some YouTube videos and explaining them the mistakes they make, which is called Trojan Horse Marketing by one of our guests, and I'm blanking out the name. I'll put in the show notes. I'm really Taylor Bentrout. Taylor Bentrout. He was on this podcast. Amazing guy. He's doing agency enlightened. I just followed his method, and without the website, without anything, I got the first client. I think they paid about $3,000 a month, so recurring support. So it's possible, but anyway, back
That's amazing,
to
man.
back to the Yeah, yeah. Thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
I was listening to one of your interviews, how to get clients, actually, and you're telling that, yeah, relying on one channel and having a repeatable sales process is what works. So, what is like for somebody who is starting out and they're like, okay, but how do I choose a channel, and
Mm.
how does my sales process would look like? Let's say they're stressed out that they really want to find something that they can start with. What would be your recommendation?
Yeah, so I would say again, keep the goal as just having one repeatable sales channel, right? One way where you can predictably get clients, right? Because again, once you have that, you can really just rinse and repeat and take that a lot farther than you think. Um, as far as choosing that one channel, like really all of the marketing channels work as long as your target market is there. I look at any marketing channel as just it's just a way to get a message out, right? Like we're doing a podcast here. This is just a way to get content or a message out to the audience, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
as long as it can, that's the only job it has to do. It just has to get it. It just has to be able to reach your target audience. Um, for most people, if you're in B2B, you're doing some sort of agency, I recommend outbound, right? So you can do cold outreach on LinkedIn, you can do cold email, you can even call businesses up. I find that to be a great way because it's just a very quick, direct response type of mechanism. So you can really get that feedback very fast, right? You can send out 200 emails, and if you know that no one responded, okay, great, I got to change my messaging, right?
yeah,
Whereas if you're going to build a social media brand, you might not know for a while, like because it takes a long time to build a following either way, so you might not have that feedback quick. So
yeah,
I always recommend outbound as a great starting place because it's simple. There's not too many moving parts, and it can give you just really really quick feedback. Like in your story before, you talked about how you'll build a landing page really quick and launch an offer, and I think that's great because you're able to just get feedback. Like you said that you would just talk to clients, see what they need, and to me that's the best way you can build anything, right? It's just by getting that feedback from people rather than
yeah.
thinking about what's needed. So outbound will allow you to just connect with people really fast. But again, I would just say go with what you're comfortable with. If you're the kind of person that loves paid ads and you're really familiar with Facebook Ads Manager and that's your style, then there's a lot to be said about going with what works for you. So but again, just pick one. It just has to work, and it just has to be able to you know reach your target market. That's the core requirement.
Beautiful. Since you're an expert in outbound, let's talk about outbound. And I want to start with something that I discussed with someone on this podcast before, and actually want to hear your opinion. Outbound, for people who don't know, it's you are actively reaching out to your clients
Hmm.
and making sure you're getting on a call with them and then selling something to them. For people who don't know what outbound is, because you never know who's listening to us,
Yeah.
young entrepreneurs and e-commerce people might not know.
Hmm.
So I was talking to this guy, and he's very successful. He's built many agencies, and he said outbound is all about numbers. It's a numbers game. So you need to consistently reach out to hundreds of people to see what's worked, to test, and to make sure it works. But it's just numbers game. You have to do it a lot. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I'd say it definitely is. I mean, we can go back to the early days when I was in door to door sales. That was still outbound, right? Because I was going to approach one person and pitch them, right? And I had to knock on like hundreds and hundreds of doors before I really, really got my script down, so to speak. Because you just have to find out what works and what doesn't, and the only way to do that is to get that real life feedback, right? So by going through a lot of the repetition, you'll start to see the
Hmm.
patterns of like, oh, this message works, or oh, this audience responds better. Um, so part of it is that, and then part of it is just like most people in your market aren't going to need what you're selling, or they're not going to need it now, right? Like if there's twenty
Yeah,
thousand businesses in your target audience, there's only a small percentage, maybe a couple hundred, that actually have that problem that you're solving, and they're looking for a solution right now, right? So it just takes a lot more reach outs than you think because again, not everyone's really at that point where they're ready to spend like high ticket or it's a priority for them. So you just want to
yeah.
basically by taking more shots, by having more opportunities, you're exposing yourself more to come across that person that like desperately needs it right now. So it's like you're almost creating your own luck by just getting yourself in front of more people.
Beautiful. So in terms of the process, again, for somebody who is very new to that, let's say they want to try different messaging. How many would you say? How much outreach do you need to do before you change your message? Because you can't reach out to five people and say, "Well, nobody likes my message." You have to reach to some amount of people, and what's the percentage of them who reply would signify to you that this message works? I guess what is the data that you're looking at?
Yeah, that's a really awesome question because I've seen a lot of people, and again, when I first got started, I did this the wrong way too, right? So if you do it on the short end where you only message 5 people, then it's say, oh, it doesn't work, and you change your message, it's like you didn't really give it a chance, right? And then the other end, if
Yeah,
you message 3,000 people and you're still going, it's like maybe you should have quit a long time ago and tried a different message, right?
yeah,
Um, so a good balance would be, I would say like 150 to 300 people. So if you, let's say you're doing cold email and you have, 200, 300 companies you reach out to with one message and it doesn't work, that's a good indicator that like it's time to switch. That's a big enough sample size where you know that like there's a good amount of people in there. And if they all don't respond, then you know that you got to change something.
yeah.
So that's usually what I
And
recommend is at least like 200 prospects.
okay.
Um,
And what is the response rate that would signify to you that this is good?
Yeah. So what you're looking for ideally is 1 out of 100. 100 companies and one of them responds to you positively. But again, this could really vary by your niche, right? If you're in an industry where it's less competitive, less saturated, and there's not many other people selling what you're selling to those people, it could be higher, right? You can get 1 out of 50 or even 1 out of like 25. Um,
Yeah,
Also, there's other factors at play, such as if you're personalizing your message, like taking time to research each person and write a custom message to them, rather than sending the same template using an automated tool like Instantly or Lemlist and sending it to thousands of people. Of course, if you personalize the message, that response rate would go up too. So that's another
yeah,
factor to consider. But a good safe target for most people in most industries would be like 1 out of 100. So if every 100 people you message, get one of them says, "Hey, I'm interested. Send me more information." Then you know that you've got a good message, and you can keep running that.
awesome. Yeah, I think why we had a really high response in this podcast growth agency, but only because it was me going through their podcast and creating like a Loom video where I would show
Mm.
them what doesn't work in their particular podcast. Our
Yeah,
response rate was very high, so we would send it to maybe 21 out of 20 would respond to say, "Well, thank you for taking time and doing that," and that already allowed me to get foot in the door and just get them on a call.
that's
But yeah,
awesome.
I
That's a
agree.
great. Yeah, if what you're selling gives you the opportunity where you can look at the other person's work and actually point out a problem, right? Like, then that's a
Yeah.
great strategy to do because that'll really bring the urgency, right? They'll be like, "Oh wow, there's something wrong I didn't know about, and this guy can help me."
Yeah, and same with like a lot of people who sell SEO or e-commerce. There's a lot of things that you can check in and say, okay, these guys are not doing it, and I can see that. And I think this business is much easier than what I'm doing right now, which I want to talk about for some people who don't have that luxury.
Hmm.
Um, but the thing is that those businesses overcrowded. SEO, websites, e-commerce agencies, all of them, because it's so easy to find what doesn't work. Uh, if you're not creative, you won't be able to stand out. But then in agencies like what I do, and currently our agency is IT and agile coaching. So I'm a software developer by trade. I spent 12 years working with governments, billion dollar companies, helping them to run their teams together. And so my agency is coming in to a company who is like a government or a big company. Our
Hmm.
company starts, clients start with like $400,000 yearly revenue and more, but usually it's like billions of dollars. So I
Hmm.
need to come and I need to help their teams. I need to see if they're looking for a transformation. But there's no way Coca Cola will tell you things are not going well here and we're looking for transformation, or we're
Right.
using certain tools that we need to onboard them. So, for things like that, are much harder to prospect and find who is looking for your help. So, I'm curious actually if you would have this client, and I'm sure you do, who are not like that easy to find who is looking for your help. What would be your approach to a situation like that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So, of course, if you're selling some sort of like visual service, right, or some sort of digital service where, like, yeah, like SEO, of course, you could do research and you could check out if their website isn't growing, right? Design, you could look at their social media, look at their website, see if their design needs work or their brand needs work. So, if you do have the opportunity to actually find their problem just by researching a company, that's definitely something you should take advantage of. But yeah, there's a lot of scenarios where you can't really tell. Like, it's even the same for me, right? Because we do coaching consulting, we teach our lead gen methods and sales process, and I can't really tell how someone sales is until I actually talk to them. Of course, I can look at their website and I can maybe see like, okay, this guy's a little bit newer. Maybe he might need help with the sales process and lead gen, but I don't really know either.
Yeah,
I'd say in that case, there's again playing the numbers game to your advantage because if you don't really know someone has a problem, all you can do is put yourself in front of the most opportunities, right? Get yourself known in front of the most companies because then again, one of them that does have that
yeah,
problem you solve will just come out of the blue, right? So
yeah,
part of it is that. Part of it too is like you don't have to just focus on a problem in your outreach. You don't have to just call out someone's specific problem, send them a Loom video. If you can, that's great. But if not, you can get their attention many other ways, right? At the end of the day, that's just one way to get their attention. But the goal of just outreach is to get their attention and interest, right? So um,
Yeah,
you could be again just having a message that really talks about the specific problem that you solve for companies like them, without saying like you have this problem, right? Or I notice you have this problem, right? So you could say like the 2 to 3 common problems that companies would experience if they don't have that agile transformation service that you provide,
yeah,
right? So you can say the two
yeah.
to three common problems that you run to and be like, hey, are you experiencing any of these, right? So at least it's kind of more focused down and more relevant. And it's like if someone is having that problem, then they would relate to that message, right? So that's another good lesson
Beautiful.
too, is you don't
Yeah,
want to talk so much about the product in your outreach. You want to talk about your problem, right? So because they don't really care
yeah.
about your product until they know that it helps them with the problem, right?
100%. Yeah. I find the hardest thing is, of course, it's a numbers game. You say it correctly. Like, if you don't know that people have the problem, you have to reach out to more people, much more people.
Mm.
So, I guess if compares are listening, you're welcome. I'm going to share one of the ways that I'm trying to solve this problem. And maybe it will help your clients as well, or maybe it will not help anybody. But I'm curious to hear your opinion. So, I was like, okay, people have this issue. They must be reaching out to somebody to solve this issue. So we are finding all the companies that are looking for Jira administrators, which is a tool that help with agile transformation, or Scrum masters and agile coaches. If those companies are hiring for those roles, then we know that they might be going for agile transformation. So then we just reach out to a whole bunch of people might be who might be accountable to hire this and transform.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's actually a really great idea. So basically, kind of what you're doing there is finding other signals of intent that they have a problem, right?
Yeah.
Um, Rather than, of course, they're not going to say obviously to the public, "Hey, we're having this problem. We need to hire someone." But there's other things that they might be doing or researching that would show you that they have that problem. So yeah, one example is hiring. Another example is that makes me think of is technologies, right? So if you go into LinkedIn or if you go into like Apollo, where you can find emails of companies, you can search based on technology someone uses. Um,
Yeah.
so maybe there's probably maybe project management tools, or maybe there's some technologies in your field that someone would be using if they're trying to solve that problem, right? But hiring is definitely a great
Beautiful.
example too, because you know that they're investing in it if they're hiring people for that role.
Beautiful. Yeah. Then the other, I guess, question for somebody who is starting out, and I just want to bring value for people who are sitting there and like, I want to make some money. I want to run an agency. Nothing works. AJ needs to give you some uh, tangible advice. So let's say somebody is contacting people on LinkedIn and cold email. Actually, let's start with that. Would you recommend somebody who is doing this outreach to use both LinkedIn and email, or just LinkedIn, just email? Like what? And do you have any data saying that both worked better? Like what's your take on that?
Yeah, so the big difference is cold email is more scalable. So if you do want to eventually be reaching thousands of companies, like it's going to be easier to do that with email, because you can just get more email accounts. With LinkedIn, it's a little bit more challenging, and you have a lot more limits on each how many messages you can send per day. So cold email can get you more scale, but LinkedIn usually has a higher response rate because people are more engaged there, and they're kind of like going onto LinkedIn to do business, so they're in that mindset of trying to improve their business or network or meet people who can help them.
Yeah,
Also, the nice thing about LinkedIn is people like if someone sends you an email, it's just like text, right? It's kind of like very impersonal. It's like just
yeah,
complete
yeah,
stranger, right? But on LinkedIn, at least you can look at their profile, kind of see what they've done, see their experience. So you will normally see a higher reply rate on LinkedIn. I would say you can use both because they work together. Like the same message you send on LinkedIn could be sent on email. You could message someone on LinkedIn, and if they don't reply, then reach out to email, right? Some people in your market might just be more responsive on email, some are more responsive on LinkedIn. So like you can use both to your advantage, kind of have that like double touch point. But I'd say if you're just starting out, like just pick one so that you're comfortable with it, right? Just maybe the goal should be to have both, but just start with one so that you get the hang of it, get comfortable with it. Um,
amazing.
yeah.
Yeah, there's one limitation on LinkedIn that I'm curious how you're solving it for your clients. You can only send about like 100 LinkedIn invites, and then if you do the too much LinkedIn, well, disable your account.
Mm.
So this is, I guess, technical hack, but I know some people are using some fake LinkedIn accounts for like it's my assistant account. Some
Mm.
people use their own accounts. In 2023, what's the latest on LinkedIn outreach? Anything you can share?
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up. That's a good point because I think it was about maybe like a year and a half or 2 years ago that they changed their limit. Like it used to be you could just send tons and tons of messages and everybody was doing LinkedIn outreach, and now they changed it like dramatically. They cut it down like 80%, and then everyone was like crying about it for a while, and now people are moving to other places. But yeah, it still works. There's still workarounds. So one is just having other accounts. I do know there's websites where you can like buy LinkedIn profiles, but I've never done that because I just always would worry that it might be more likely to get like banned. So I just say use a real account. You can make another account that's like a different version of your name. So I have AJ Cassata, then I have Alexander Cassata. Um,
Yeah,
and I have my, when you have a team, you can use their profiles as well. Soon enough, if I need it, I'll probably use my wife's profile or maybe
yeah,
make a profile for my dog or something. So you could just use a lot of even within your network. That'd be
beautiful.
the safest way because then it's like a real profile, so you don't have to worry about like buying it off some shady website.
Yeah, yeah. I'll be honest, I did buy at some point. It worked well. We don't use it anymore because, yeah, my team uses their accounts. But if you do it, fine. I mean, it works. If it's not related to you, it could work to overcome that. But
Yeah.
again, do it on your own risk. If you're listening to this, and I didn't disclaimer, it might be bad for you. So please don't blame me if it didn't work. Amazing. So the other thing is, I guess, the opening um, message or the opening email. I think a lot of people struggle with that, me including. What are some of the tips that you have to have higher open rate for the cold email, for LinkedIn message? Anything you can share?
Yeah. So one tip I would give everyone is like, so you got to realize that whenever you're doing any marketing or whenever you're selling anything to somebody, you're not just competing with the people that are directly competing with you. Like you're not just competing with people that sell the same stuff as you. You're competing with everybody else who's trying to get the attention of your target market, right? So you're basically up against, if you're doing cold email, you're basically up against everyone else who's cold emailing your prospects, right? Because they only have so much attention and time in a day. So what I'd recommend if you want to get better at copy is just go start paying attention to the cold emails you get, right? So you can just see like what your prospect is comparing you to.
Yep.
So like I have like some folders in my Gmail inbox where if I have a good cold email, I'll put it there. I have a folder for awful cold emails, and then I have a folder for okay cold emails. That's what it's called. So like I just like pay attention to the ones that come into me, and I categorize them so I can look back at the ones I liked or the ones I didn't, the ones that stand out, right? Because the best way to get in the minds of your prospect is like to be a prospect, right? To kind of just think like what it's like to be on the receiving end, right? Um,
Yep.
because we all get cold email. We all get pitched in cold email LinkedIn, right? As soon as you sign up for LinkedIn, you'll have 5 people messaging you the next day, right? So
Yep.
first would be start to pay attention to pitches that you receive, and you'll start to see a lot of the same patterns. You'll see what like 80-90% of the people kind of do the same thing. They have the same type of message, the same length. So you want to make sure you don't do that because then it's just going to be like almost like the prospect's immune to it, right? They're just going to see it and put you in this box of like another salesperson's trying to sell them something, right? So
Yep.
yeah, try just get a good feel for like what most people do, and then just make sure you have a way of being different in that.
Awesome.
And yeah, go ahead.
Go for it. Go for it. Go for it.
I was gonna say so, but when you do that, you'll notice a few things. You'll notice first of all, a lot of people that use really really long cold emails, and no one wants to read an essay, right? Like
Yeah.
it just no one has the time, right? Because if you think about it, people check their email when they're like starting their day. Like that's what I do, right? I'm in my email for like ideally just 20 minutes and just getting stuff done before I can go do like other work, right? So it's different on social media. People are on social media to kind of like be entertained or learn something or like just waste time or be distracted. But when people are in their email, they're in it because they're trying to really like get stuff done and like move on with their day. So you don't have much of their attention, right? So ideally, like
Yeah.
3 to 4 sentences really is the best case scenario. If it's a little longer, it's okay, but I try to have it be like a maximum of 6 sentences because I just find that the longer it is, the lower the reply rate. So
Yeah.
keep it like as short and as simple as possible. You also don't really need to say that much because you also want to think like the goal of outreach messaging is not to sell your product or service, right? You're not trying to inform them, you're not trying to educate them. You can do that on a sales call. The goal of your outreach is just to get them curious to respond and to take the next step, right? Like you just need to start a conversation before you can try to make a sale, right? So You don't really need to say that much. You just got to say enough to kind of make them curious and respond and be like, hey, like, what's this? Or tell me more.
Yeah. Um, any example of, let's say, LinkedIn message that you would send? Let's say you are, I don't know, e-commerce agency, and you just want to reach out to some um, e-commerce sellers to sell something. What would be your one sentence opening message on connect? Let's say you connect something on LinkedIn, just from top of your head. It doesn't have to be perfect, but for somebody to have an idea how it looks.
Yeah, for sure. So I would say, so first I'll give you guys all a framework you can use. You could just think of three like ingredients, I like to call it. One would be the pain problem. Two would be the desire slash outcome that they want. And then three would be credibility. That credibility is optional, right? But really the biggest ones are the problem and the desire. So if I'm reaching out to e-commerce brands, you can say say something like, "Hey, found you on LinkedIn. Saw that you were doing really awesome work with your company." So some kind of just like icebreaker, right? Like how you found them or why you're reaching out. Then if you found a specific problem, you could point out their problem. Like, "Oh, I noticed that you guys aren't running ads because I didn't see a pixel installed on your website." So you can go that direction. Or if it's a generic problem, you could just say, like I told you before, common problems that they might have, right? So be like, hey, found you on LinkedIn, saw you're doing really great work. I notice a lot of e-commerce brand owners really struggle with X, Y, and Z, right? Like they, paid ads costs are going up since iOS 14. They find it hard to find an agency that's reliable, and it's even harder to get reach on social media. Like you could probably find a better version of those problems because it's you
Yeah,
know the niche better than me. But list out a couple common problems and be like, are you having any of these problems? Or are you open to getting help in any of these areas? Um, or you could tie in the credibility, right? Like, so again, a lot of e-commerce brand owners are having XYZ problem. We've helped companies like X, Y, and Z solve this through X, Y, and Z, right? Like whatever your solution is or whatever the result that you're getting people is.
yeah,
So again, it's just starting with the problem so that they can relate to it. And then you can even go directly to like, are you having this problem? If you want to keep it really, really short, or you can just go into a little bit of introducing your solution and credibility, right? Like we've helped companies get this result by doing this for them. Would you want to learn more about this? So again, just really, really simple. Like that's just 3, 4 sentences right there.
awesome. And then when they start conversation, the next step is for you to move them to a sales call, I assume.
Yeah, definitely. And that's another good point is like when you do look at other people's outreach messages they send to you, you'll see that they usually always say like, "Are you free tomorrow for 45 minutes?" And can you imagine like 5 seconds ago you didn't know this person, now they're asking you for like your time tomorrow, right? So I recommend not asking for a call right away.
Yeah,
Just say like, are you interested in this, or do you want to learn more, or can I send you some information? It make it easier for them to say yes, and then once they respond, then you can be like, great, well, we could definitely dive into this over a call, but at least like get them to engage with you first by having a softer call to action, I like to call it.
yeah, beautiful. Um, and you would do similar one on LinkedIn and then email. Email just a little bit longer version of what you would send as an invite, right?
Yeah, the copy for email is pretty similar to LinkedIn, and I really wouldn't have to be that much longer. Still with email, like you want to just keep it again like a maximum of 6 sentences, but best case scenario is if you can get your point across in 3 to 4, because then it'll make sure it gets read. Like a lot of times, if it's longer, people might skim it, and you don't want them to skim it, right? Like you put each word in your copy for a reason, right? So you want them to read the whole message. So if it's shorter, it's more likely they'll actually just like read the whole thing, you know?
Beautiful. Um, for people who are doing that, but they need some help with automation and tooling, what are some of the tools that you guys are using that help you with doing all of this? Because I assume you're not manually writing yourself 100 emails a day, or your team not manually writing 100 emails a day to everybody
Yeah.
every day.
Yeah, not anymore. I would say the only time where it does make sense to do manual outreach if you're doing something like you were doing, right, where you were doing that very like hyper targeted approach, like taking a lot of time for each prospect to make them a video and like customize your message to them. So if you're doing that, then it's great to do it manually, and you'll get a really high response rate. Unless you're doing something like that, and you're going for more for the numbers game, then you definitely want to use automation. So for LinkedIn, we use a tool called Expanding. It's pretty awesome. Been using it for a couple of years. There's a lot of tools out there. So if you use
Okay.
something else and it works, that's fine. They mostly all do the same things. But Expanding is a great tool for LinkedIn. So you can send connect messages. You can send that first message. You can even have it follow up for you if the person doesn't reply. And for email, we use Instantly. A lot of people might be
Mhm.
familiar with like Lemlist or Mailshake. Those are a little bit more popular.
Yeah.
But Instantly is a really cool tool that's come out in the last like 2 years, and it's definitely been my favorite.
Yeah, I heard they're doing like a warm up for people who don't know. Once you get your email accounts, you need to warm them up, otherwise Gmail will just ban you and
Yeah,
it won't go very well. And I think that instantly, they're one of their biggest selling points is they do this warm up on every tier. So some of them, like, you need to buy really high tiers for them to warm it up, but instantly does it by default, right?
yeah, definitely. So that's how they got a lot of the market share, is because they came in and just offered like a fixed price when all these other cold email softwares were making the price scale up as you increase the volume. So you basically just pay like one price, even if you're sending like over 10,000 emails a month, which is pretty cool.
Beautiful. Um, the other part of the sales process is, of course, closing your prospects. And I want to talk about high ticket items. Um, any difference for selling, let's say, something that is $3,000 to something like what we are selling, hundreds of thousands of dollars per after the call? So do you see any difference in how this needs to be targeted?
Yeah, from a sales perspective, like once someone's maybe already answered
Hmm.
your messaging and they've already agreed to have a call with you or so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say so. The core principles are the same in terms of like the way you structure the conversation and the sales process. So we can talk about that. I would say the main difference would be maybe just the length of like conversation or interaction they need to have with you. So if someone's spending like 5 or 10,000 a month, they might want to see a little bit of information before the call to warm them up. Maybe you might have a 45-minute or an hour call, or maybe like a 2 call close and a proposal. Whereas if you're selling something that's like a couple $100 a month, you wouldn't need all that effort. You could have probably a really quick call, or potentially even close it without a call if it's like something like a SaaS tool or something.
Yeah.
But the overall, the main thing to learn is the sales process, right? Like the discovery phase of asking questions to learn more about their situation, the principles of having a great like presentation and presenting your offer, objection handling, things like that, right? So again, you're still dealing with a person either way. So there's still like the same principles of psychology and sales.
Yeah.
Just the difference is kind of the amount of time they would need to spend with you and the amount of trust that would need to be built for a bigger decision.
Beautiful. Um, any tips on like calling rejections? How would you deal with that if people say, "Well, that's too expensive"? Let's say, what would you say?
Yeah, so I'd say where most people go wrong with this is they try to like defend themselves, right? And then it becomes almost like an argument. Like you know how it is, even in our personal life, right? Whenever you just tell someone they're wrong, they never want to listen to you, right? It's just always like two people butting
Yeah.
heads. Um, so it's the same in sales. You never want to come across argumentative. Where
Yeah.
if you're like too expensive and I'm like, no, it's not, you're cheap, and it's like, okay,
Yeah.
now we're just gonna be
You're
arguing,
just broke. Get out of
right?
here. I don't want to talk to you anymore.
Exactly. So that's never gonna get you a decline on your side, right? So
Yeah.
you just want to be kind of empathizing with them and agreeing with them. So if you tell me it's too expensive, I'd first be like, well, yeah, it is definitely a lot of money. I can see where you're coming from. And if I say that, like, even if it's just a fake environment right now, doesn't that just put you at ease just hearing that, right? It's like, oh, this person agrees with me. He understands me,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So part of it is empathizing with them so that it doesn't become like argumentative, and then try to see where they're coming from. So there's kind of like three steps. It's first empathize with them, just acknowledge, kind of like restate what they said, tell them like you understand it. Um, and second would be get more information. So you have to really understand what the real objection is. And then the third thing is you can kind of handle it or discuss it with them. So a lot of times if someone says it's too expensive, like if you tell me that it's too expensive, that could mean anything. That could mean that you just don't have the money, but you see the value. That could mean that you do have the money, but you don't see that
In a
it's worth it.
bargain.
Exactly. Or maybe you're just trying to haggle and get 10% off, right? Or maybe the
Yeah.
whole time you're going to buy and you're just trying to negotiate. Or maybe
Yeah.
like you said it's too expensive because you got a quote from a competitor and it was like a third of the price and you just thought that mine was expensive, right? So you don't really know. And now each of those different scenarios would require like a different conversation to help them overcome that. So the first thing is just try to understand what the real objection is. So you could say something like, hey, when you say it's too expensive, like how do you mean? Like too expensive compared to what?
Yeah.
Or how do you mean by that? And just get them to talk more, right? So whenever a good rule of thumb is that when you hear an objection, just ask at least like one or two follow-up questions, and you'll always find like the objection is maybe not what you thought it was. And then you at least know what the issue is. You kind of like isolate the issue, and then you can talk about that and have an open conversation and maybe share some examples to help them. But you have to
Beautiful.
kind of know what it is you're dealing with first, right? Like usually the first thing
Yeah.
someone says is kind of like surface level, or it could be like a smoke screen.
The one thing I would add from my experience is also sometimes how you structure your payments might not be right. If you're saying it costs you $150,000, and people will be like, "Well, do I need to pay it right now?"
Mm,
Let's say what we do, I say no, it's a milestone based pricing. I mean, I give you, I let's say I make you money, you pay me money. So you pay some deposit, and then we have a milestone. So if you have if you reach a milestone, you pay. If we don't reach a milestone, you don't pay. So for you it might not be 150,000, but as a result, if we reach all your milestones and you're super happy with that, then you pay $150,000.
mm,
And I think that could put people at ease, because, well, they understand that, okay, I only pay if it works. If it doesn't work, I don't pay.
mm,
um, at least for me, that's sort of kind of worked most of the time, especially when you sell these huge packages. Like when
mm,
I was selling this, let's say 3,000 a month, I would just say, well, you can commit to 6 months, and then after 6 months we can cancel it or something like that. But at least you would try that. I don't know if that works all the time, but for me, those kind of this gives them at ease a little bit. They understand that, okay, it's not like upfront. I also have cancellation policy or something like that. That they're less scared to pay. Does that
mm.
make sense?
Yeah, definitely. No, I think it just ultimately just comes down to taking the risk out of it for them, right? Like whenever
Yeah,
someone's buying anything, they're always assessing the risk, right? Like what is the likelihood I'm going to get my result versus not getting it, right? So I think that just puts people at ease, and that's the thing. Like when it's high ticket, it's funny to think about high ticket sales, right? It's like someone doesn't know you one day, and then the next day they're spending like 10 grand or 20 grand with you, right? It's crazy when you
yeah,
think about it. It's like magic. Um,
yes,
but you have to
crazy.
kind of realize like that is a lot. Like, and if you go buy high ticket, like if you buy a coaching program or an agency, like you probably have that same feeling where you're like a little nervous that it's going to go well or not. So
Yeah,
yeah, I think there's a lot to be said about just seeing how you can take the risk out of it, or just present it in a different way, right? So instead of saying like it's 30 grand for 6 months, to say it's 4 grand a month, right? And you can of course cancel any time after the initial period. So yeah,
yeah.
I think definitely a lot to do with how you present it.
And the other thing we do is like we compare it, sort of like, okay, what's your options? You can hire our agency, or you can hire a full-time employee. Your full-time employee will cost you $300,000. This costs you, let's say, $150,000, and it's twice faster, the same result, and you have very flexible schedule. So, and then you have to, after a year, you don't need the guy, but you need to fire the guy. But how would you fire the guy? Because you hired the guy, so you have to pay severance. Here, you don't have to pay anything. In 6 months, we're gone, and you have the same result. People will be like, okay. I mean, sort of, there's definitely if you can, I mean, if you cannot compare it to something that is comparable and your offer is better, then I think it might be issue with an offer as well, right? Because your offer needs to be better to be able to sell than your competition, or at least the basic stuff that people would get without working with you at all, like hiring somebody else.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, rule number one is just don't have a crappy offer, right? um, all the persuasion skills and all the sales tactics you can learn won't help you if you don't really have a great offer to begin with. And if you're really getting like if you're talking to like tons of prospects and you're getting no and no and no over and over again, it's likely you're not that bad at sales, and maybe the problem is actually just your offer needs to be reworked. So definitely a good thing to think about as well.
Is there any books or anything that you read or that you follow about creating offers? Because I think this is one of the most important parts that people miss.
Mm. Yeah, well, I think we probably all know that purple book floating around, right? $100 million offers by Alex Hermosi.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
really been taking the marketing world by storm. So that's probably the best book I've read on offers. It's really short, really simple too. You can read that in like a day. So that would be a good starting place. And then of course you can look at marketers like Russell Brunson. Like any of his books are always great on marketing, creating offers too. Um, but
yeah.
yeah,
.com secrets and traffic secrets, all the secrets,
yeah.
all the Russell Brunson secrets books are very very good. In terms of scaling that, at some point you're not doing your work yourself, and I assume you don't do most of this work yourself. You have a team. So how does your team look like right now, and who are the key people in this sales funnel, and when is the best time to hire them? I know it's a big question, but you can take it any way you want.
Yeah, no, it's a great topic to get into, right? Because like yeah, I mean, you probably experienced it as well. I mean, problem is when you start your business, it's like you're doing everything yourself. So you get a lot of clients, and you have less time to get clients because you have to deliver to those clients, and there's like an invisible ceiling over you, right? So I do find it's really hard to escape that stage and get to having a team. Like that transition is where I find a lot of people get stuck because it's also hard to hire a team. It's like how do you know who to hire and when to hire and what to pay them, right? There's so many questions. But yeah, for what my team looks like now is so our main offer is a 4 month coaching program where we teach our outbound lead gen methods and sales process, mostly like agencies, but anyone really in B2B. So we'll work with someone for 4 months or so. And what our team looks like is we have me as the sales and marketing coach. We also have an operations and a mindset coach. So we help them with other areas of their business too. We have an accountability coach slash customer success. So someone that checks in with all the clients, keeps track of where they're at, that sort of thing. So there's three of us on the fulfillment side, and then we have a sales team of three. So we have two appointment setters that do the outreach now and appointment setting, and one closer. So I don't take the sales calls anymore. I take some here and there, just to kind of like stay sharp, or maybe meet with our bigger prospects. But yeah, so sales team of three, fulfillment team of three. Then we have my wife. I actually run the business with my wife, and she manages the operations and finance and back end, which is good because I hate doing that stuff. And if we
Same
get
with me. Wives
yeah,
are good at that.
yeah, they are. You work with your wife as well?
Yeah, she does all the accounting and operations and all the money stuff. Yeah, I'm allergic to forms and all the accounting, so she takes care of that.
Yeah, same here.
Yes,
I think my wife doesn't really like it that much either, but at least she knows that if I do, the company's going to blow up. So I think she just does it to keep us safe.
same. Yeah, yeah.
Because I'll be like, oh, I'll do that form next month, and then I'll never do it, and then get
Super
minus.
wives, super
But yeah,
wives.
yeah, and then
Uh,
her, and then a VA. So it's just eight of us now.
Beautiful. So in terms of, I guess, again, listening to one of your interviews, you were saying when you're starting a sales team, you mostly need appointment setter and a salesperson. So maybe can you describe what are the different roles of them and who you should hire first, let's say, for somebody who is starting out?
Yeah, so and not every company does it this way, but it is becoming more and more common nowadays that it's split roles. Like when I first got into sales 9 years ago, when I worked in construction, I did the appointment setting, I did the door to door marketing, and I did the sales. I would come back and close the deal for the construction project. Um, but yeah, really, it seems more common in the online business space that it's split roles, and I find there's a lot of benefit to having one person that just does appointment setting and can get really good at that, and one person that just does closing and can get really good at that. When you start though hiring a sales team, I would recommend that you just do it one step at a time. So usually the first person that would make sense to hire would be an appointment setter, unless you're getting inundated with calls. Like if you're already having like 15, 20 calls a week, then you have enough to get a closer. But assuming that you're just kind of like working your way there, the first person to hire would be someone to help you get more appointments. And then next would be getting a closer, then taking yourself out of the sales call role. But that usually takes a little bit more time to find the right person. And train someone. So at least appointment setting would be easier to pass off because it's a little bit more of like a process you can just teach step by step.
And so appointment setting for people who don't know, and correct me if I'm wrong, is you're first doing a lead generation. So you're going through LinkedIn's and you're going through different tools like Apollo or other tools where you're finding people who meet your persona of your business. And
Yeah,
then the appointment setter will contact them using the templates that you create with appointment setter, and then start a conversation, a lead conversation to the sending them calendar links so they sign up and then
yeah,
making sure that
exactly.
they'll come.
Exactly. So the appointment setter's job would be just to book calls for the sales closer. So ideally, that the closer can just show up to calls each day and just focus on what he does best, which is closing. So that's kind of where the role would split. And yeah, what you want to do is ideally get good at appointment setting yourself first. So if you're just new to cold outreach, do it yourself, get the process down. That way, when you hire someone, you can at least teach them and be able to answer their questions and help them. It's much
Yeah,
easier to hire someone if you actually have an understanding how it works first. I'm sure you probably
for
learned the
sure.
same thing too in your own business.
And I also find like I'm a big proponent of VAs. So Frances, my VA, who actually set up this podcast as well, she's doing most of the work. And if I need to do some lead generation, I can send her some Loom video, and say, okay, you can just go and use that process to get me some people, and then you can use my LinkedIn to contact them. So essentially, I mean, it's a good stuff for somebody who doesn't have money to like spend on appointment setter, might be to do all this task yourself a couple times and then get your VA to to do them consistently, and then maybe learn from that. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
definitely. Yeah, well, we've done the same thing. You could, if you just really systemize the process and like you said, have the templates prepared, kind of do all that like creative work ahead of time, so it's just more like copy and paste. Then you could definitely have a VA do it.
Yeah. Or the other option is sometimes I do that. You can go on Fiverr, and there are people who can find you leads if you have a really good criteria. So if you know exactly who you're looking for, and I'm saying exactly because if you don't know a little bit, they'll give you crap. But
Yeah.
they can like for I think for $50, so they can give you like 100 or 200 leads. So you can start with that as well, and it's just like one-time transaction. I mean, they might not be ideal, but at least you'll get a sense, and some of them will be crappy, but I mean, maybe usually like 60-70% is good if your criteria is good. So there might be another option for somebody who only have like $30 and want to try it out and don't have time to collect emails or don't know how to do that.
Yeah, for sure. That's the awesome thing about outbound marketing is that you don't really need to have a bunch of money to spend on it. You don't even need to again spend a bunch of time on it because you could definitely get someone for a pretty low cost to help you with at least some of the process, right? Like gathering the lead list or maybe sending the messages for you.
Yeah. The last question before we go to rapid fire section that I question I ask every entrepreneur is I mean, a lot of people will be asking, AJ, but I don't have any reputation in my field. I'm just like a new guy. I'm just starting a business, and then I'm on a call with the CEO and I need to sell them something. And I'm so afraid they're going to ask me for testimonials and for examples or some other stuff. What should I do? I'm so stressed out. What would you tell them?
Yeah, so I would say the only way you're going to actually have a reputation is by actually going out and building one from scratch, right? So there's no other way around than you just have to go through it. And yeah, if some people tell you no because they want someone more experienced, that's fine. But not everyone is, right? Some people will be willing to take a chance for you. You know, you can even spin it as a positive, right? You can say like, well, first of all, it doesn't have to even come up in the conversation, right? If you're just very confident in your sales process and confident in the process you're walking them through, like most people won't even think twice, right? But even if someone does ask you about it, you can just be honest, right? Like you don't have to lie about it. Just be like, hey, I'm new to this space, but I've been studying it for a while. I've done it for myself. And because I'm new, I'm very hungry and I'm going to work really hard to make sure you're a great case study, right? So you can even like take that negative you think and spin into a positive. But
Beautiful.
ultimately, like people aren't going to care about it as much as you think. I used to think that too when I was getting started, and I just realized it was kind of in my head. Like people
Yeah.
don't care about your reputation; they just care that their problem can be solved, right? So if you can just do a good job showing them that you can help them solve their problem, they're not really going to be asking you so much or like looking you up online.
Yeah, completely. Same. I actually never, nobody ever asked me about like my previous client testimonials or reviews or anything. We have some on the website, but nobody asked me. And I was actually very scared about that. So that's why I'm asking.
Yeah.
So if you're in this, if you are in this situation where this is stop you from doing things, I think you're overthinking it. Just go with it and stop thinking about it. You'll be fine.
Yeah, definitely.
Um, Amazing. So the last section is called rapid fire question. There's 5 questions I ask every entrepreneur. They are not all related to business, but you can take them any way you want. They can be short or long answers, whatever you want. Just same questions I ask people. What are some of the routines that help you to get into focus and keep you motivated on your business and a mission? Can be morning routines, evening routines, can be both, whatever. Take it any way you want.
Yeah, so I really, really believe in the power of routines. I worked with a life coach a while on structuring my routines because I've just seen so much of a difference. Like, you know how it is, right? When you have a bad day or a bad mood for the day, it's just like so much of an effort to get things done. So
Yeah.
I've been really, really obsessing over that the last year or two. I think, yeah, it's good for me having a morning routine and an evening routine. My morning routine for me is, you know, I'll wake up, I'll do a short meditation, and then usually I like to work out in the mornings too. It gets me kind of pretty energized for the day. I also try to not look at my phone in the first like hour of waking up and just kind of be a little bit more present. I find that that really helps me not be like reactive or like thinking so much about work stuff right away. Um, so I try to just have no phone until like usually after breakfast or so. And then in the evening, I like to also same thing, not look at the phone before an hour of sleep because then again, it also like you're looking at all that light and then it makes it harder to go sleep. Or you're thinking about stuff because you're looking at your social media and then you're getting like ideas and stuff. So
Yeah.
I find it helps my sleep better if I also have like a little bit of a detox from technology before bed. And yeah, also a little bit of reading is a nice way to calm down. But that's helping me get better sleep. Obviously, sleep can be a little bit crazy when we're on this side of the world in Bali and Vietnam, and having good
Yes.
routines, to have good sleep was really important. Like same time I go to sleep, same time I wake up, all that.
Beautiful. Since you are in Vietnam, and I'm actually experiencing same problem, lots of clients are in UST, PST time zones, so sometimes you're getting to like late calls. How are you dealing with that? What's your way of scheduling your time or dealing with that?
Yeah, I mean, for the first year I was out here, it was really challenging because I was taking calls at like the worst possible times of day, right? I was like, oh yeah, I'll take a call at 3 a.m., sure, and then just suffer the next day, right?
Yeah,
Um, so what I did is I just started to create more of a boundary in my schedule, right? So I only take calls from these times to these times. So really, I only take calls Monday through Wednesday from 8 p.m. till midnight. So that way, it's like constrained.
yeah,
Um, and
beautiful.
at first I was worried that like it was going to be tough for other people, but then I just realized like, most people will, if they want to meet with you, they'll kind of accommodate, right? Like for the US, that just means meeting in the morning or before lunchtime, and that's not a problem. So yeah, just putting some sort of boundary of it really helps me. And
Beautiful.
yeah, just being willing to like just say no if it doesn't work out. If it's something really important, I'll stretch it a little bit. I'll like if it's a podcast I want to do or something, like I'll wake a little bit earlier, a little bit later. But I try to generally keep things in a boundary. And the nice thing about that too is I actually found it to work a lot better unexpectedly, because I find that like if I was in the US, maybe I might have meetings at random times of the day, and then I would always be like getting distracted. But at least
Yeah,
now it's like all my meetings are at once, and I found it really helpful to have like deep work and creative work separate from like meetings, and just kind of like lump them together. That way, like during the day, I can just work on something that's creative and not be distracted by like having to talk to someone. So I think in general, it's good to like split up the types of work you do into different parts of the day.
beautiful. Yeah, I learned it the hard way when I scheduled too many meetings at night, and then I learned that next day you cannot just function at all.
No,
So
yeah.
same with you. I don't take calls. I take calls two times. I mean, I don't have that many calls as you do, but yeah, I usually take calls 2 days a week from maybe early morning and later. And some of my clients are actually adapting to my schedule, and they are taking clients in their off time. So I might have meeting with the whole company department, and it will be like 7 p.m. their time, because they find it valuable to work with me. But yeah, and the other way I'm trying to structure it, if they need somebody to be STPST, I would hire somebody or get somebody in my team to support them, and I won't be doing it myself. But
Yeah, there's
yeah,
always ways around it, right?
100%. The second question is, what are some of the beliefs that you used to hold? It can be about business, it can be about personal success, anything you want. It can be also the time frame you can choose, last year, 2 years ago, 10 years ago. Some of the beliefs you used to hold that you don't hold anymore.
Yeah, I would say I used to think that maybe like to be successful in a business, you have to really almost follow the mold of someone else's created. Like you see someone's, I mean, and there is a lot to be said about, someone else has been successful and you can learn a lot from following their path, right? But I used to think that I just had to kind of follow like the blueprint other people laid out for me. And now I realize more that like, of course you want to learn things from other people. There's a lot of value in having a mentor or learning from people online, whatever it is. But really like the best thing is just following your own intuition and following what you want to create and give to the world, right? Because that's something that only you know, right? Like you only really know what you can bring out to the world. And that's unique to you. And you won't discover it if you're always trying to look at like what people are doing out there.
Yeah,
Um, I think a lot of that just kind of becomes from just gaining confidence in yourself, right? And just being willing to trust your gut on what you want to do. But yeah, follow
beautiful.
like now I just try to follow more like what work I find fun, what I find helps other people, what gives value, what I want to create, right? Rather than just thinking like I need to do what other people do or what other people tell me to do.
Beautiful. If you meet the younger self, let's say 10 years ago, what would you tell him?
Um, I would tell him, surprise, you're gonna end up living in Vietnam. He probably never would believe me.
Ah, yeah,
No, I would say maybe take really care of health and relationships and like routines we talked about earlier. I wish I would have taken that seriously earlier, so I could have really developed that from a earlier standpoint. Because for a while it was very much like that. work hard, play hard, workaholic type person. And now I've become a lot more prioritizing my health and prioritizing sleep and having routines and all that. And it's really helped me a lot. So I would have loved to kind of get into all that stuff when I was younger.
Beautiful. Two more questions. Which book or books have influenced you the most in your journey? And again, it can be sales books, it can be personal books, anything you want to share apart from the ones we already shared here.
Yeah, I would say, well, for business books, $100 Million Offers is a great book, definitely. Um, I've also recently read Atomic Habits, and that was really, really great. Probably the best book I ever read around habits and personal development. I would say really my favorite though, the one I recommend to everyone would be a book called How Successful People Think by John Maxwell. John Maxwell is a
Hmm.
really, really great author. He's a lot of awesome books around leadership. But that book is around like how to get better at your thinking, which I think is a really, really cool topic, right? Because if our whole lives are kind of guided by our thoughts, right? But no one ever teaches us like how to think or the different ways you can think, like creative thinking or reflection or like focused thinking or problem solving. So I think that's a really cool book everyone should read.
Beautiful. And the last question, a deep one. According to AJ, how to live a happy and fulfilling life?
It's a good question. I'd say, yeah, I'd say living a happy and fulfilling life to me is first just really, really tapping into what makes you happy, not doing what other people tell you to do, not worrying about what other people think of you, like really, really just learning to distance yourself from that and just doing what makes you feel joy, right? And I think a lot of that comes from spending time alone, right? Spending time alone so you can kind of get to know yourself. We got to go through life always like, you know, distracted by the external world, right? We're going to school, we're working, we're hanging out with friends. And I find we don't always take a lot of time alone, but at least traveling has given me a little bit more of that. And it's allowed me to discover like what I really enjoy doing or what makes me happy. So yeah, get to know yourself, get to know what makes you happy and just try to follow that as much as possible because like that's all you really have. There's no one way to live your life, even if it seems like that. Like you create your own life, right? Based around what you want to live, what you want to do. And then other than that, I'd say um, really like having balance, like having more than one thing that makes you happy. So like if you just focus on work, then if you have a bad day or a bad week at work, then you have nothing else to really like be happy about that week, right? But if you have multiple things in your life and you focus on balance, like making sure you're always having great relationships, great health, great work, then you're always going to have a lot of things that will kind of fill you up and make you feel happy. And then if one thing's not going so well, at least you have other areas of your life that are going well, and across the board you're feeling pretty good about the state of things.
Beautiful. Yeah. Thank you for sharing. AJ, those are all my questions. Before we go, how do people find more about your agency if they want to hire you, they want to work with you, anything you want to share?
Yeah, so I'm pretty active on social media. You can connect with me on LinkedIn at AJ Cassata. You can also follow me on Facebook, or I'd recommend you join our Facebook group. It's called B2B Sales and Marketing Secrets. I teach like all this stuff for free in there, and I produce a lot of live videos in there. We also have a free course on outbound in there too. So that'd be the best place to connect with me and then learn a little bit more about some of the stuff we talked today as a Facebook group.
Beautiful. We'll put it on the show notes so people can check it out. Thank you for your time. I learned a lot and it was lots of fun.
Yeah, definitely, man. It was great. Great to be here. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you for listening, guys. You know where to find us, and I'll talk to you next one. Bye bye.